This drama, let me set this up, and then we're going to bring on Evan Hafer and Matt Best because they're the guys behind Black Rifle Coffee. So the guys, Evan and Matt, they were talking to the New York Times. And the New York Times did a piece on them, and I'm very fascinated with the perspective of the piece because it said, is Black Rifle Coffee Company trying to be the right's version of Starbucks, which I thought, really, coffee has a right or left? But okay, we're in a very hyper-tribal time in politics. And so there were people who got really mad, including some very dear friends of mine, who got very, very mad at them and the quotes that they gave about this piece. So I read the piece and I highlighted a bunch of portions, and I thought, you know what, let's have Evan and Matt on from Black Rifle Coffee Company, which, by the way, also full disclosure, this is a little oat milk in the Berserker blend. I normally don't sis it up like that, but today I did. But guys, it's good to have you. Welcome to the show, Evan and Matt. And so, wow, you guys have had a busy weekend, huh? How you doing?
We're doing great. To be honest with you, we were up in, I was up in Big Sky, Montana. I was doing a total archery challenge up there for the last couple of days. So I've been shooting foam targets in the mountains with my buddies. And so, Twitter is kind of a self-contained ecosystem of disaster that I try to most.
And it's very easy for things to go sideways very quickly. It's like it's like playing the worst game of telephone possible. I feel like, right? So let me ask you this: with the New York Times, who approached whom for a story? How did this happen?
So the genesis of this is Matt and I were actually bass fishing in Florida, and we were out in southern Florida right before what was the race?
I think you caught the bigger bass.
Either way, we were bass fishing with one of our good friends out there, and he owns a fishing shop you guys might have heard of called Bass Pro.
That's a little store. I've heard of that.
It's a little store. So we're
shop,
bass fishing, and we get pinged by the New York Times. Hey, we're doing a story on you. Whether you like it or not, like, this is what we're doing. And so we kind of went around. We debated it for quite a while as to, like, okay, do we just tell them to fuck off? And sorry.
We gotta watch the Portuguese for the.
I apologize. I apologize.
It's
Sorry.
okay. It's okay. It's been a crazy weekend. We do have that one pass with Brendan Carr, FCC commissioner. So, if we need to pull that.
I will not say any more of those. Do we just tell them, like, no, not interested, or do we actually give them the opportunity to write an objective piece, which I know is almost impossible, or statistically impossible for the Times to do? We don't live in a fictional reality. I completely understand what the perspective of the Times is, but I also thought about it in the context of, if they want to try to write an objective story, for at least our community, we can highlight a lot of different veteran-related issues that we see every day.
Yeah.
Over 500 people in Black Rifle Coffee, just about half of them are veterans. And we had some things that could sync relatively appropriately with this, which is we do a veteran adaptive athlete shoot every year where we bring out service members that have been directly physically and mentally harmed by these wars. There are over 35 people associated with that. And we really did feel that it would be appropriate to be as transparent as we can, to be very objective, or at least.
And for context on this too a little bit, Dana, the first thing when the guy showed up, Evan and I were like, how's that hit piece coming?
Yeah.
That was there, because, we were naive coming into this, but it was really a way of saying, hey, can we show you a more holistic approach? We know that there's going to be misrepresentations of our company. We weren't sure which way. I mean, I was pretty nail in the head with how the story turned out. But, it was just us trying to say, hey, look at what we're doing. Look at the
Well, you're a business.
Stuff.
You're a business, and you do veteran advocacy. I mean, it would be, honestly, it'd be kind of stupid for you to not be involved. I mean, it's not like you guys aren't pundits. You guys aren't political analysts. You have a company, and we're in this like crazy hyper political time, and you do a lot of good stuff for veterans. So yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for wanting to participate. I mean, it would be one thing if you guys were two pundits on Fox or whatever, and you guys were going to do it. Then it gets a little different. But yeah, so let me ask you this, Matt or Evan, which one of you wants to take this. Did you know the perspective of the story, or did you have an idea? Because calling you the coffee shop of the right, honestly, and I'm going to put some tinfoil on my head here, it almost seems like if I were a competing coffee company and I wanted to do a hit on you guys commercially, this is how I would do it.
Yeah, I think that they wanted to drive whatever narrative they are. We're two conservative guys that are gun owners that, I've been in this space for 10 years, and they can say whatever they want about the company, and that's what they did, and I think there's portions of that story that were directly meant to hurt our customer base and our company, and I don't necessarily know if there were motives behind that or whatnot, but like all we can do is just be open and transparent, be who we are, keep
Right.
roasting great coffee, and do what we're doing.
Right.
And that's all we're trying to do, and set the record straight in some of the stuff that I believe was completely taken out of context.
Right. So it did, because to me, when I read the piece, it seemed like you guys got, well, and again, I know how reporters can take things out. I've done a piece with a pro. Are they storming in your studio?
Yeah, someone's
I've talked to the New York Times before, and I know how. In fact, we got a Washington Post reporter coming here this week, so I know how it can be, and it can be very, it can be, how they come at you with certain angles.
Sure.
So I want to, because I was looking at a couple of parts of the article. So this is where, one of the things that I found was crazy is they were trying to, let's just start with, did they ask you about any of the people that they were quoting in this piece? Because it seemed like they went and found some of the most controversial people. And I know that there's been a lot of stuff said about some of the folks that have been named and have been, that were talking about your business. But did you know of anybody that they were talking to? Were you asked about any of them? Because I'm going to get to the Rittenhouse thing in a moment. But what did you know anything at all before?
No. We could kind of pick up from the conversations as to the perspective, or at least the lens that they were looking through, but we really didn't care.
Right.
To be honest, with
you wanted to talk about your stuff, and let me get to. This is what I thought. It said Black Rifle's executives. I liked this thing, and this is really, I think, the thrust of it. They think it's provocative, the stuff that you guys do, obviously, and
Sure.
I got the impression that. They thought that what you guys did was too extreme, because they even said at one point, Trump courted military and service to an extreme, and Black Rifle Coffee Company does that too. And they said that, your guys aren't the size of Starbucks, but you could achieve your own kind of red state ubiquity. And clearly there's hostility there. They get into your background with coffee. I didn't know, Evan, that you actually took your own pour over stuff when you were serving. The part that I think that really got everybody is when it gets into the Rittenhouse stuff, and then when it's talking about, for instance, people were getting into the racial aspect of it. So let me bring up the Rittenhouse thing. I've talked about this at length. I thought Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. As a mother, I think there's two separate issues that are competing here, and I've written about this, talked about it. I'm happy to have this debate with anybody. As a mother, there's no way in hell that I'm going to let my child, who can't even sign a legal contract, to go across the state line and defend a store that's not mine, or do something that he doesn't have to do like that. Separate from that issue, when I saw how because he was being pursued and he was absolutely attacked in the video, and he was defending himself. The fact that someone had a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt or hat there, I'm just curious. Do you know, has anybody asked, like Nike or Adidas or any of the other brands that were present at any of these things that you guys are trying to get pegged on? Why is it that they're only going after you think, and asking, why is your brand present at this event?
Well, I think for me, mainstream media is inherently left, right? And we are the antithesis of what they like. We're a bunch of former soft guys that shoot guns on the weekend and love the American flag. And I think for that instance, I think a lot of that stuff got taken out of context. I have a concealed handgun license. I carry a gun nearly everywhere I go. And at any time, I'm ready to have the opportunity to defend myself legally. So if someone does that, of course I'm going to support them, right? And I think that there's instances within this company that we get thrown into a larger political discussion. I was carrying a gun 7 years ago for a living. I am not smart enough to be a political commentator, straight up, and all we can try to do is do the right thing and support where we can. But
right. And I know, Evan, you and I've talked before on that, on the defensive aspect. You were on this program and you talked about it. So I'm not quite sure where, because
my viewpoints haven't changed exactly. I'm almost 100% in line with you, which is, I think in that, for instance, he had every right to defend himself in that circumstance. I don't know how the legal system is going to push left or right. I don't know what was happening before, and I honestly don't know what's after. But I do know, and I do believe that people have the right to defend themselves, and they have the right to defend their property. Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. But there are external circumstances that I cannot weigh into. I don't know, but I do believe in the right to defend yourself.
Right.
And I think the courts will decide ultimately right or wrong or indifferent. But I believe in the right to defend yourself. I believe in the Second Amendment, and that's never changed for 7 years. Like, I carry a gun every day, and I cannot be more adamant about that. It's like,
but I might have him
the right to
beat
to
though, Dana. I think my safe room's bigger than his.
Yeah, no, his safe room is
Humble
bigger
brag.
than mine.
Right.
And, but I think for that point, it's it's belaboring in this context of nobody else is going after Adidas or Nike or Timex for what they were wearing, but because I think we have a unique opportunity as Black Rifle Coffee to be something fairly big and unifying across the United States, because we serve a greater purpose than just serving coffee and creating profit for shareholders.
Right.
We have a greater identity, and we have values, I should say.
Right. Well, then that makes sense. I want to ask you guys a quick question. Do you guys want to hang on for a couple of minutes and do one more segment? Because there's two things that I wanted to ask you from this piece, and we're talking with the guys at Black Rifle Coffee Company, Evan Hafer and Matt Best, because they did an interview with the New York Times, and Twitter went nuts over this over the weekend, and I kind of wonder if. Sometimes I get frustrated because I feel like people on our side who are clearly our allies sometimes get set up. And I understand that the right has been hurt a lot. And I think that people always are on offense, but sometimes that can be a little bit premature. And I want to get into that with these two quotes from this piece, one of which gets into racism, and the other one where you were talking about, Matt, I think this was, or no, Evan, this was you. No, Matt, you said you were talking about hijacking of branding. So I want to ask you about that, and then the racism quote as well. If you guys want to hang out with us just for a couple of minutes, and we'll get to those. Awesome. I appreciate it. And we are rejoined by the guys at Black Rifle Coffee Company, and I'm having some of the Berserker blend. I feel like a sissy because I put oat milk in it this morning. Tastes good, though. But we're talking with Matt Best and Evan Hafer because they gave an interview to the New York Times, and everybody started kung fu fighting after that. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us and staying with us. All right, two quick questions here, because this is all from this New York Times piece. Matt, you said, you told the New York Times you can't let sections of your customers hijack your brand and say this is who you are. No, we define that. And there were some people who interpreted that as you saying, you excluding them, I guess, from being part of the Black Rifle Coffee family. That's kind of how it came out in the New York Times piece. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that flow of the article, they set it up nicely in the sense of they're pushing a point that they wanted to say, that I'm discrediting or we're somehow devaluing our customer base, right? And I could be defensive, or I could talk exactly to what I was saying. Over the last 10 years of being in business, I have been the anti-woke guy, and the left has demolished me. I've gotten death threats. I've gotten, my wife's gotten, name it across the board from the left. So when I see stuff like Black Rifle Coffee is a white supremacist coffee company, I'm not letting the left hijack our brand. So that is essentially, in context, is a general term saying the brand guidelines, who we are, our value system and proposition exists from the owners, the partners, and everybody that builds this company. Right. So that's what that statement is there for. Like, we are a veteran-owned and operated company,
and that's your mission.
Supports, and that's our mission.
Right.
And it's pretty transparent out there. And I think it's easy to conform those statements into trying to make us look bad, because they don't want us to be in business. They don't.
Evan, I wanted to ask you, because we got a minute 30 left, I think, Kane, you'll let me know. You were asked about the racism part. I don't know why they even decided to bring that up to you, but they were out of nowhere. They decided to ask you about racism, and you said, oh, this racism expletive really, blanks me off. I don't like, you were talking about the racist that you don't like. And then, of course, because the left wants to characterize all the right as being racist, that's how it was interpreted. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so the context of that conversation was about the direct attacks that the company had from last year that was representative from racists and anti-Semites. We were the recipient of an attack against a very organized group of anti-Semites because of my last name. And we were discussing racist and anti-Semite remarks, and that portion of our society. So my quotes are taken directly from, this is what I was referring to, the attacks, the inboxes being flooded, the doxing, the death threats. That's what I was saying. I was saying, this is the worst of our society.
Yeah. I wish we had more time. Our hour's getting ready to wrap up. I also want to, everyone needs to pay attention to that last line, because they were asked if they would ever sell a Beyond Black Lives Matter coffee, and you guys said, yeah, no. Because again, you were talking about your mission. Evan Hafer, Matt Best, appreciate you guys. BlackRifleCoffeeCompany.com. We'll catch up again. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thanks, Gina.
Right now, I want to bring in Evan Hafer and Matt Best with Black Rifle Coffee Company, because a lot of questions, we were talking about this New York Times piece. If you want to have a discussion on misinformation, the New York Times, which suddenly I think some people on the right believe at face value, which I don't understand, but the New York Times did an interview with Evan and Matt, and we were talking about that. There were a couple of questions, guys, and I appreciate you hanging on with us as we kind of went through the whole process. But there were a lot of people asking these questions, and so I just want to get to it right off the bat. Evan, you and I, we've talked before about this, but for the people who, I guess, decided to live in a cave and didn't listen to the #1 program from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern, by the way, the Dana Show, who didn't listen to our discussion, everyone's like, well, I want Evan to talk about those Act Blue donations. That's what I'm hearing. Your response?
Yeah, this has been a direct misinformation campaign for the last several months, and it's fairly easy. One, I think we got to break it down into a couple different points, which is this purity test of conservatives that has to last forever. Like, you have to be born into the cloth of red, and then you have to continue to be a conservative the rest of your life. One, I don't believe it. But two, the second piece is, I've been a conservative and a fire-breathing conservative for a long time, my entire military career. When we talked last time, we talked about this bet back when the Obama and McCain were running against each other. And to put things into context, you and I talked about it on the show in depth, but people knew exactly in my team how to get under my skin. We were having a shooting competition out in northern Iraq, and they knew the worst thing they could do is make me publicly donate in the team room to the Obama administration.
That's
quite
mean.
Literally, they knew that was the one thing. So not only that, but then I had to wear an Obama for President shirt around DC when we were going out, when we came back from Mosul, Iraq, because they knew this is what would get under my skin.
That's mean.
Now, I don't believe, by the way, in these purity tests that everybody seems to think that they need to put
the
people
best way to
under.
It feels like Monty Python, the Monty Python, witch test, Life of Brian. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I always summarize it to this. It's like, that's the one factoid they're taking, but they're just ignoring all the conservative donations that he's done his whole life. It is what it is.
It's not only conservative donations,
what it is.
It's the donations, and it's always like, what did I start? We started Black Rifle Coffee Company. I was walking around SHOT Show in 2014 with a duffel bag trying to hand vendors samples of Just Black coffee that I was roasting in my garage at the time, trying to get people to buy into coffee and guns. I love the two, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's the things that I love are pretty easy. Like, I love guns, I love coffee, I like freedom, I like all of those things. So I think it's
weird to
just
even have
taken
to,
out of context.
Weird to even have to defend that.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad, and thank you for answering that, because that's one of the questions that I've been getting from people. They're like, well, I heard that, and we have, and again, for everybody who's just joining, I will put that link to Evan, our discussion. I'll put that in the newsletter and also on YouTube too. Matt, question for you.
Sure.
You and I were talking, and I thought you made a very good point as well regarding New York Times. When people are reading the New York Times, and or whether it's CNN, or whether it's Washington Post or MSNBC, a piece from them, or AP or Reuters, I always thought that my, I guess, ideological brethren, for lack of a better way to put it, had a kind of a good, strong discernment when reading these pieces, and making sure that before we immediately took something as face value, that we would perhaps verify it, because you know that the outlets that are publishing this stuff haven't.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like maybe that hasn't been fully explored in this particular situation.
Yeah, I think we talked about it earlier. There's a lot of discussion points that I think the Times, doesn't like us for, voting for Trump, one of them right there. But everybody kind of just went over that, took what they said as fact, as, institutional knowledge per se. And I think it's, again, like, I'm not here just to mudsuck the New York Times, but we kind of know what that institution stands for. They don't like people like me. They don't, and that's fine. So I think it's a little interesting for people to just, like you said, take it at face value. And like, again, I feel so weird even trying to be defensive. I mean, like, I think it's so transparent, our company, over the last 10 years of who we are and what we do. And, you know, we are who we are. And not everybody's going to like us. Like that, I mean, that's okay.
Some people may like tea.
Yeah. Not me.
I don't know what's wrong with those people, but
I don't either.
I drank way too much coffee, so I don't need any more tea.
Last quick, and both of you can hit this last quick thing for you, and then we'll let you guys get back to your day. I appreciate your time with us, talking to the guys at Black Rifle Coffee Company, Evan Hafer and Matt Best. I'm gonna be straight up. When I was reading this piece, I thought this is a great way to put a wedge between an emerging business on the right and the customer base, and trying to get people to take this bait and go after and kind of attack one of its own. Because one of the things that the right is known for, and I've been doing this, and I mean, I've been doing this a lot longer than a lot of people criticizing, and I say that not to be condescending, but just to, illuminate and kind of bring some perspective to the issue. It's one of the things the right's really good at, and that's one of the things where the left actually does better, is that they hold the line and they don't try to virtue signal with a self-sacrifice. Whereas I think the right kind of does it a lot, because I think some people on the right want to be liked. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on, do you feel, after reading the story and after seeing it come out in the New York Times, do you feel that this was, an instance to take you and to take remarks that you gave and try to drive a wedge between, like I said, an emerging, in this woke corporate culture, an emerging business on the right that actually is gaining a lot of steam and is, it looks like, you guys are preparing to threaten a lot of these very, latte liberal coffee establishments,
right,
and drive a wedge between you and your base. Your guys' thoughts on this?
I don't know if it's directly intentional. I don't know if, I think what it was here's a perspective from a journalist that obviously has a political point of view. And I don't know if there's a second or third order effects, or he's a master chess player to kind of think about that and what he's doing. I think there's definitely an intention for quite possibly the editors or people that are publishing to think about it in that perspective.
Right.
And I think that at any point in time when you have the opportunity to take a shot, right? When you've got an opportunity to take a shot, maybe stomach punch a company that continues to do the things that we do. We talk about freedom, we talk about fun, we talk about firearms, we talk about the veteran, military, and law enforcement community. There is a lot of people that do not like that. So they are going to take the opportunity to discredit and or cause chaos whenever they have that legitimate opportunity. And I think we knew that, by the way, Dana. We knew that going in. Like, this was more than likely going to be a challenge. But like I said, we owe it to the veteran community to give people the opportunity to come in and talk about how people have been directly affected by the wars over the last 20 years. I've done it repeatedly, and I'll never stop, which is I take these opportunities to continue to discuss the important issues that he and I talk about all the time. And so for me, I felt like this would be an opportunity to at least give them an opportunity to be objective.
And you try. You try to let them be objective.
I try.
There you go. Matt, any final words as we wrap up here?
No, I mean, if it's any consolation, I said the best thing they would do for themselves would be make our customer base mad at us and make us look like we're gun-toting extremists. So I don't, all I know is I'm going to get back to work. I'm going to keep serving my country and do epic fun things. And I hope people stay along for the ride and see through some of the that I can't say on the radio show.
I know.
You know what?
We're feeling it. We're feeling it. Matt Best, Evan Hafer, Black Rifle Coffee Company. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time today.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. All right, folks. No, I think it was very important to have that discussion. And everybody out there in the listening audience, y'all know, everyone's like, oh my gosh, she hung him over for a third segment? That never happens. You're right, it doesn't. Why did I do it? Because I feel like it's important, and I feel like we're at a kind of a turning point with the right. And I feel as though, let me ask this. When did conservatives start taking everything that the New York Times wrote at face value?
I didn't know it started, but
when did that happen? Yeah. When did conservatives start taking everything that, CNN said at face value? I think it's a fair question to ask. I mean, I hope that people saw the last sentence of this piece where it said he was asked, would Black Rifle Coffee Company, and I'm reading from the New York Times piece, which sells a thin blue line coffee, consider changing the name of its Beyond Black coffee to Beyond Black Lives Matter? And Hafer began to laugh. You wouldn't do that, I ventured. That's the reporter. And he says, I would never do that. We're trying to be us. And that's the end of the piece. So here's my thing. And I know we got headlines coming up. And for those who are, and full disclosure, and I said this at the very start of the interview, the Black Rifle Coffee Company does not advertise on my radio show. Now they advertise on the first, but they're not, and I asked about this, they're not even locked in for a year contract. So I really don't care. I mean, I got full, can I be really, really honest? I don't need their advertising money because we have a waiting list for advertisers. That's true. So I really don't have, I don't have nothing to lose about this.
This wasn't a puff piece.
It was not. And I wanted to ask some serious questions and get perspective because everyone now is trying to flex. Everyone's trying to flex and no one's actually asking them like what happened here. So I'm glad that we had this conversation. I'm going to put links to all of this and, in all of this. And, if you all guys want to, have your own perspectives even after this, that's fine. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to get the full answer on this.